Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Humanistic Service Provision Debate for Applied Behavior Analysis. Before we begin the informal debate, the group members will introduce ourselves. Next slide. Hi, everyone. My name is Meg Blodgett. I live in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I am in my 5th semester of school at Ball State University. I am pursuing a career as a BCBA, and I am a full-time grad student. My role in this debate is the introducer.
Hello, I am Brittany Charlo. I am currently in my 3rd semester at Ball State. I work as a registered behavior technician. I am a full-time student and pursuing a career as a BCBA. For this debate, I will be the summarizer.
Hi everyone, my name is Genesis Medina and I live in Miami, Florida. I am currently in my 3rd semester. I am pursuing a BCBA and I currently work as a registered behavior technician. My role in this debate is the illustrator.
Hi, my name is Antara Burns. I am from West Palm Beach, Florida, and I'm currently working as an RBT. This is my 4th semester at Ball State, and in this debate, I will be presenting the research that was reviewed to discuss the topic.
Hi, my name is Meredith. I'm from North Carolina, working as a registered behavior technician, and I'm in my 3rd semester at Ball State. My role in the debate is the fielder.
Our group will be debating the humanistic service provision, specifically the ethics behind gift giving, social media presence, and multiple relationships. According to Bailey and Birch, behavior analysts have been following a code of ethics since 1988, when the Florida Association for Behavior Analysis, FABA, adopted the FABA Code of Ethics. Since then, the Code of Ethics has been constantly updating to accommodate the world that we live in. Behavior analysts have been using the professional and ethical compliance codes for behavior analysts since 2014, but starting next year in 2022, we will be following the ethics codes for behavior analysts. Let's take a look at some of the changes that the 2022 ethics codes will have. Next slide. The figure on the screen shows the change in codes as we transition from the 2014 Professional and Ethical Compliance Code for Behavior Analysts to the Ethical Codes for Behavior Analysts effective January 2022. These changes will be addressed before each debate topic. Debate topics include how does gift giving and receiving gifts affect the professional relationships and responsibility to the client? Should friending on social media be allowed? And should cultural competence be an ongoing process or a step-by-step or system set in place to address various aspects of diversity? To begin, we will be discussing the pros and cons of gift giving and receiving gifts from clients. Next slide.
Whether or not gift giving should be accepted and where to draw the line between considering our ethical obligations as behavior analysts is a commonly discussed topic. In the current 2004 version of the Behavior Analyst Professional and Ethical Compliance Code, gift giving is addressed under multiple relationships and conflicts of interest. As this is the only time gift giving and receiving are mentioned, it presents as an act that would constitute multiple relationships, which the entire code is centered around avoiding. However, this conversation has evolved to address how gift giving and receiving affects the therapeutic relationships differently. Could declining gifts negatively impact therapeutic relationships, or is it even worth the risk of possibly blurring boundaries of the professional relationship? Let's take a look at both sides. Next slide.
This video depicts some examples of how gift giving can seem harmless but can cross an ethical line. It also provides examples of alternative gifts that are inexpensive that can be considered small tokens of appreciation without it overstepping ethical boundaries. Let's take a look.
In this slide, I will be discussing the negative effects of declining a gift from a client. Declining a gift from a client can negatively impact the client and the provider relationship. Witz et al. Conducted a study in 2018, which surveyed 60 behavioral analysts regarding gift giving. According to the study, the results showed that 57 out of 60 of these behavioral analysts engaged in some form of accepting gifts. Out of these 57 individuals, 77% of the behavioral analysts claimed to have accepted these gifts to avoid harming their therapeutic relationship. In some of these cases, cultural differences led to the BCBA's decision on accepting a gift. According to Hoop et al. 2008, accepting gifts from an individual whose culture highly values this exchange is less detrimental than declining the gift. Some culturally diverse individuals may feel greatly offended from this type of rejection, and this may negatively affect the therapeutic services. Witz et al. 2018 suggested that rather than prohibiting behavior analysts from receiving gifts, that it would be more beneficial to provide scenario-based trainings that teach behavioral analysts culturally appropriate and inappropriate situations for accepting gifts. This suggestion may clear many uncertainties related to gift giving in the field of ABA.
Does anyone have any personal experiences related to this topic? If so, what happened? Did you resolve it? Did you have to use your cultural awareness skills at all?
So I have an example for this one. As a special education teacher, I would get gifts for holidays or during Teacher Appreciation Week. If I had turned down a gift from a parent or their child, it would have negatively impacted our relationship and made it difficult down the road. I also worked in Title I schools, so most of my families did not have a lot of money. So the fact that they spent some of their money on a gift for me was a big deal and could not be declined.
Thank you for sharing your experience. Does anyone else have any experiences related to this topic? All right, next slide.
In this slide, it shows the study that was conducted by Witz et al. In 2018. As you can see in this picture, you can see all the questions that the survey asked and how they were answered. Most of the individuals claimed that they've experienced situations where they felt as though for cultural reasons, it would be offensive to refuse a gift and that it would also change their therapeutic relationship if they had declined.
In this slide, I'll be discussing gift giving and gift receiving and how it can create blurred boundaries between the client and the behavior analysis. Blurred boundaries can lead to a slippery slope. Slippery slope is when someone engages in a behavior that can quickly end up in a negative or harmful outcome. If we give or receive gift from our clients, this can lead to a multiple relationships or other harmful outcomes. Boundaries should be clear and established at the beginning of the relationship. Actively refraining from this kind of behavior can decrease the instance of a slippery slope and help clients and the providers from running into harmful or negative consequences that could possibly come from gift giving. Gift giving can also lead clients or caregivers of the clients to expect more from the provider, which in turn can lead to a multiple relationship. If someone gives even a small gift, this could lead to more gifts, or they may expect more from you. For example, they might want you to stay longer for services, or they may want you to babysit, and this could put the behavior analysis in a position where they feel obligated to do so because the family has expected more from them. This goes back to the slippery slope, like I was saying in the beginning, so it would be in the best interest of the client and the provider to refrain from gift giving. In ABA therapy, we are working very close with families and we work with them for a long time. That creates opportunity for multiple relationships to occur. So as a behavior analysis, we need to always protect ourselves and the client from forming these kind of relationships. According to the BACB Code 1.06, Section C, behavior analysts recognize and inform clients and supervisees about the potential harmful effects of multiple relationships. They are very complex and it is best to just avoid this dynamic altogether, regardless of the price of the gift and if it is acceptable, makes the decision-making process very difficult. It is best to keep these things simple and draw the line at no gift giving at all to avoid all these consequences altogether. Having clear communication at the beginning of the relationship and setting boundaries and discussing why these boundaries are being set would help clients understand where the behavior analysis is coming from, and they might have a better understanding of why you will not accept a gift. Having that clear communication can help avoid the clients in becoming offended or negatively impacting their relationship when we are honest and clear in the beginning. Next slide.
To summarize, when considering the ethics of gift giving and receiving, it's important to consider how this gift will be perceived by the client as well as other parties involved. We should consider the blurred lines that could be created when gifts are accepted or denied, and consider whether or not it's worth the risk of creating a dual relationship. We should also consider cultural differences among clients. How might one client perceive gift giving and how might another differ? We should communicate at the beginning of services how gift giving, whether or not it is accepted and what it will look like. We should make those expectations clear, whether through written or verbal policies. And we should also allow for clients to provide feedback and how this may affect the relationship as it continues to grow. Next slide. The 21st century has ushered in a new age of social media and a new topic of ethical considerations when avoiding multiple relationships. Social media is a prevalent community where people can share their lives and see into others. Social media is not only used for personal use, but it's also used by businesses and other professionals. So while there's a variety of factors to consider when identifying what multiple relationships looks like, social media should always be up for discussion. Is friending on social media considered a dual relationship? What would friending mean to the professional relationship? How could we utilize social media as a less formal format to increase parent participation and treatment? First, let's take a look closer at the changes to the relevant ethical codes. Next slide. The current ethical code does not explicitly point out how social media connects our ethics with multiple relationships. However, because behavior analysts face a common dilemma, the new ethics code effective in 2022 has multiple codes relevant to a conversation about ethics and social media. Code 111 clearly states that behavior analysts should avoid entering into multiple relationships, including professional, personal, and familial relationships with clients and colleagues. Code 110 addresses the responsibility for behavior analysts to be aware of personal biases, which could be altered by what we see on social media. Code 510 addresses behavior analysts' responsibility to not publish any confidential information on personal accounts, and when used professionally, the steps needed to be followed. However, it does not explicitly address how to maneuver social media when it comes to clients and personal accounts. Code 3.1 also addresses behavior analysts' responsibility to their clients. This code is applicable to concerning how to utilize social media with clients, how it may be beneficial or not. Let's first take a look at the different themes of multiple relationships. Next slide. This video will provide examples of different types of dual relationships.
Right. These are ways in which multiple relationships can be formed. Has anyone developed a dual relationship in any of these forms? What happened and how did you resolve the situation? Did you end up finding yourself on a slippery slope as well?
Oh, sorry, Brittany, I'll go first. So I did have a dual relationship that did form with a family last year, and I can define it more of like as an altruistic gestures dual relationship. So as a special education teacher of a self-contained classroom, I always gave my parents my personal phone number in case they had any questions, and especially last year during COVID, when we were doing school virtually, it was really important for them to be able to have contact with me in case there was any issues with computers or anything like that. However, with me being more flexible than I maybe should have, or definitely should have, I had a parent who definitely took advantage of my generosity and started texting me outside of the limits of the work day and would text me at like Sunday at 7 p.m. talking to me about her son's weekend and all these things. And it definitely put a strain on our professional relationship moving forward. I wish if I had realized this relationship forming, I should have set clear boundaries in the beginning of the school year saying that I would only contact parents between the hours of the workday and that I would not respond until it was within those workday hours to be able to keep that relationship from crossing a line.
Okay, thank you for sharing. Brittany, did you have something to share as well?
I did. When I first became an RBT, I had a situation where I guess I could identify it as an unanticipated circumstance. I saw a client at this new work placement, and I recognized them from my community, and they came to my church sometimes, and I would see them out in the community. And because I was more aware of dual relationships and how they could harm any professional relationship, I confronted my supervisor about it. At first, it wasn't taken too seriously. And then I talked to the person over my supervisor, and it got addressed pretty quickly. And I'm glad it did because that relationship that I had with that individual was not always excited because of just things I couldn't control. And so I think that that could have harmed his progress and could have put in different variables that I wasn't willing to be a part of because we were there for the clients.
Thank you for sharing. I think those are great examples of how dual relationships can be formed. Next slide.
In this slide, I will be discussing the benefits of friending clients on social media. According to Ethics Code 3.01, responsibility to clients, it is a behavior analyst's responsibility to do what is in the best interest of their client. Having a relationship within a social media context creates opportunity for the stakeholder to develop a close and trusting connection while still maintaining a professional relationship. Friending a stakeholder can open more forms of communication, which allows for a more honest and open communicative relationship. According to Eber of 2018, having a productive working relationship can lead to significant treatment-induced change. Due to the easy access of social media, this is an additional way to stay connected with the stakeholder and be available as a professional. Eber 2018 also emphasizes on the importance of a strong clinician and parent relationship. The stronger the relationship, the higher the chance that the parents will follow through with the treatment plan. According to Gardner et al. Of 2017, boundaries are established and maintained within the context of the therapeutic relationship to create space for both the clinician and the client to operate within. When considering multiple relationships, practitioners and clients alike may struggle to find the line when working to avoid multiple relationships. So, where do we draw the line where aspects of interpersonal relationships are needed for a positive therapeutic relationship? There are aspects of multiple relationships like flexibility, perceived genuineness, and a more relaxed form of communication, which may linger into ethical dilemmas. However, these aspects create a more comfortable relationship, which allows for the stakeholder to feel more honest and trusting.
And this video will depict questionable situations in which people in the ABA field often find themselves in. It includes scenarios that one may question if it is okay or not okay to do. Let's take a look.
Blurred Lines presented by Dr. Amanda Kelly. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge my co-authors, Patrick O'Leary, Megan Miller, and Missy Olive. We published our paper in Behavior Analysis in Practice in 2015.
Social media platforms offer opportunities to connect across generations.
Social media platforms offer opportunities to connect across geographical barriers.
Twitter is one online social networking site. Twitter allows users to post and read tweets of up to 140 characters long.
Twitter reports 271 million monthly active users, with 500 million tweets sent per day.
LinkedIn may be considered the world's largest professional network. The site has 238 million members in over 200 countries.
Websites like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn afford companies and individuals the opportunity to quickly communicate and connect with one another.
1 out of every 7 people on Earth has an active Facebook account.
Abstinence is not a realistic expectation. Your friends, your neighbors, colleagues, and employers are going to go online. Let's focus on how to behave ethically and responsibly. We look to the Behavior Analyst Certification Board's Code of Ethics for guidance.
The Behavior Analyst Certification Board does address responsible behavior on social media sites for behavior analysts and technicians. Behavior analysts must not create situations likely to result in the sharing of any identifying information about current clients and supervisees within social media context.
Public statements include written testimony, brochures, ads, radio and television broadcasts, websites, and posts on online social media platforms.
Consider this. A newly minted BCBA posts a question regarding a student in her classroom who climbs on furniture. She asks if anyone has any resources. This easy access to information might encourage the behavior analyst to circumvent the literature in the future. Reading research is a skill all behavior analysts should have.
Behavior analysts provide services only in the context of a defined professional relationship. A client requests to be your friend online. Should you accept? Would it be appropriate to be friends? Or does this present a dual relationship? Is there a conflict of interest? The BACB code recognizes that there are situations where it may not be possible to avoid non-professional interactions with clients and supervisees. Imagine living on an island. Bailey and Birch explain that having social contacts with clients can interfere with our objectivity as behavior analysts and can increase the chance of harm or exploitation. So, what should you do? Pull out your phone, log into Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and delete your account? Should you get rid of your social media presence altogether? Not exactly. Behavior analysts have a responsibility to support the values of the field, to disseminate knowledge to the public, and to discourage misrepresentation. In 2015,
Work relationships need boundaries to maintain professionalism. Being friends or following a client would be considered a multiple relationship, since that individual is letting them into their private life through personal videos, posts, and pictures. When individuals connect through social media, private activities are shared with one another. Sharing these activities shows some aspects of that individual's life that may not be accepted by others and can increase the chances of harming a professional relationship. Some examples include pictures of alcohol consumption, political posts, pictures of smoking, or inappropriately dressed images. According to Gebhard, 1994, the crossing of one boundary without obvious catastrophic results, making it easier to cross the next boundary. That being said, the fewer risks a therapist takes, the better, because it's a slippery slope once the BCBA has broken one code to break another. BACB Ethics Code 1.11, multiple relationships, states that a behavior analyst should not engage in a multiple relationship, and BACB Ethics Code 510, social media, states that they do not publish information and or digital content of clients on their personal social media accounts and websites. If a behavior analyst were friends with a client's family members on social media, they might tag the BCBA in a post, which would be violating codes 510 to Code 510. Code 3.1, responsibility to clients, say that behavior analysts should not do anything to harm the client and should act in the best interest of the client. By friending a client's family members on social media, the behavior analyst could be causing potential harm to the client. Next slide.
To summarize, this is a loaded topic. When we think of social media, it may be difficult to maneuver what this would look like for us ethically. On one side, it may be beneficial for us to friend one of our clients or stakeholders on social media in order to create a more flexible setting where they may feel more comfortable communicating and also benefit the client in a way where parents or other stakeholders feel more invested in the treatment. However, it should be at the forefront of our ethical decisions that we are, as behavior analysts, are bound by our ethical code and should follow it, maintaining work relationships with boundaries that will sustain professionalism. We should take into consideration how social media can create these multiple relationships. If we begin to friend clients or other stakeholders on social media, we may run the risk of creating a conflict of interest. We may also run the risk of violating numerous other ethical codes by allowing our personal lives to be viewed by our clients or vice versa. We should consider creating boundaries from the very beginning of the clinician-parent relationship by allowing the client to know where and when is the best time to reach you. That way there's no miscommunications and excuse to use social media as a means of communication. Next slide. Topic 3 of culture and competence and diversity. Culture and diversity affect what is important to an individual, their values, perhaps morals, all of which affect our lives and more specifically our behavior. When it comes to working with a diverse clientele, there are various factors to consider, including race, disabilities, family dynamics, cultural diversity, sexual orientation, physical, mental, and emotional challenges. The list goes on and on. As we know, behavior is shaped by our environment. So without considering diversity, there may be independent variables that are missed, resulting in an inappropriate behavior change intervention put into place, inadequate services provided, and the possibility of causing harm to the client and/or family. Similarly, both codes address the responsibility of the behavior analyst to promote cultural awareness and diversity and work within their boundaries of competence, which extends to aspects of diversity. Our clients' environments are shaped by different aspects of diversity, including their culture, socioeconomic status, family structure, etc. Therefore, behavior analysts must be sensitive and competent to cultural and different aspects of diversity as they differ from their own in order to provide effective treatment to clients throughout the professional development. A difference in the codes is that after 2022, behavior analysts will also be responsible for incorporating and addressing diversity while supervising trainees and supervisees. While ethics help guide our decisions, the question is brought up on ensuring that behavior analysts are keeping up with this responsibility. Should cultural competence be an ongoing process or a step-by-step system in place to address various aspects as we serve our clients? Let's take a look. Next slide.
In this slide, I will be discussing how serving individuals with various aspects of diversity should be an ongoing process to best serve our client, to not become a list of to-dos, but rather a conscious effort. Fong et al. 2016 discusses the importance of clinicians engaging in more culturally aware practices. For instance, instead of clinicians relying on their personal experiences, they would practice by assessing, collecting data, and hypotheses. These practices allow for clinicians to have a better understanding of client behavior and to reduce potential for bias. Being mindful allows clinicians to remain alert while attending to each client interaction. This allows for clinicians to carefully evaluate each situation in order to provide the best services for cross-cultural families. Fong et al. 2016 also suggested that cultural self-awareness can be enhanced by communicating with other professionals in the field, reading journals and forums related to this topic, receiving feedback from sessions, using exercises to self-reflect from previous experiences, as well as attending meetings with mentors. These suggestions involve behavior analysts describing their own experiences and behaviors, which may help them learn from their own and others' experiences to enhance cross-cultural interactions. In the next slide, we will be showing a tool to self-assess cultural awareness. This visual was added to provide a tool, as well as give a list of questions to assess an individual's cultural competence and awareness. Cultural competency and awareness of diversity should be an ongoing process, including self-awareness.
This video contains information on cultural competence and what can be expected as we expand and become culturally diverse towards all. There are small tips on ways to engage and respond, as well as maintain a diverse outlook as we come across various cultures in our workplace. Let's take a look.
What is cultural competence? Cultural competence is the ability to understand, communicate, and effectively interact with people across cultures. Cultural competence encompasses being aware of one's own worldview and developing positive attitudes toward cultural differences. Cultural competence encourages the acknowledgement and acceptance of differences in appearance, behavior, and culture. Some believe that cultural competence is practiced by merely showing respect to everyone we encounter without considering our own bias. It is impossible to be an expert of knowledge in every culture. Therefore, it is important to admit that you are not an expert. It is through your willingness to ask questions and listen to others' stories that you demonstrate respect. People with diverse racial or ethnic backgrounds, refugees, migrants, and immigrants are all around us. That's the nature of the increasingly diverse world in which we live. The Census Bureau estimates that in 2020 alone, international migration will add 1 person to the US population every 34 seconds. Our world is growing, and with it, our opportunity to build valuable, diverse relationships. Cultural competence is important because without it, our opportunity to build those relationships is impossible. Instead, we'll coexist with people we don't understand, thereby creating a higher risk for misunderstanding, hurt feelings, and bias, things that can all be avoided. Here are a few ideas that will help improve your cultural competence. 1, pay attention. 2, listen. 3, show interest. Listening to one another, seeking to truly hear them and understand their perspectives is a crucial step toward peace. Extend a Touch has a topic called Cultural Competence, where you can meet other caregivers and exchange ideas about cultural competence.
However, cultural competence can be difficult to monitor, and it should be more systematic to ensure culturally appropriate practices such as BCBAs working within their scope of competence as it pertains to various aspects of culture and diversity. According to Fong et al. 2016, using cultural competence training standards will ensure that all BCBAs are developing the necessary skills to have cultural awareness while serving others. However, if BCBAs do not take or neglect to take these trainings, they may fall short of developing their cultural competency. Fong et al. 2016 also developed a list of standards that are related to cultural awareness in the field of applied behavior analysis, which can ensure that the workplace created a culture of continuous development and awareness to best serve diverse clientele. They are listed here on this slide. Next slide.
As we take a look at the key points of cultural competence and diversity, it is important that we take a look at both sides. While on one hand, it may be beneficial for some BCBAs to look at cultural competence as an ongoing process, for others, this might pose the challenge of whether or not it's able to be monitored, how they will be held accountable, and how this development will continue if it's not able to be monitored. Should it continue until a client faces harm or an unethical practice occurs? There's no clear right or wrong answer. However, it's important that we keep in mind that we are required to promote ethical cultures in our workplace. So while there may not be a correct answer to this argument, we should keep in mind that as professionals, we can make a difference. We can do that by educating their workers about clients and their backgrounds to ensure that our interventions are being put in place and through the filter of culture and diversity as it pertains to that client. It is also important that we encourage education for cultural competence. We can do this through enhancing communication in the workplace, as well as promoting for workers to research foreign customs if they're working with a diverse clientele. It's important that we take these aspects of diversity and culture into consideration when serving our clients to ensure that we're doing our part to provide ethical services. Next slide.
Cultural competency is a broad concept used to describe a variety of interventions that aim to improve the accessibility and effectiveness of healthcare services for people from racial and ethnic minorities. A good way to be more systematic is to have workshops and trainings and cultural competence for the providers. The more we know, the more we can understand and provide accessible and effective services to these populations. Yes, we do not walk into service knowing everything about one's culture. However, it is being able to acknowledge these differences and are then able to view a situation from a different culture perspective than one's own. What are some barriers to cultural competency in the ABA field?
Some barriers that I have experienced in my time as an RBT are that, for example, I live in Waco, Texas, and while I have an undergrad in social work and have a passion for culture and diversity, I have recognized that there isn't as much of a push for it, mainly because the clientele that we do serve aren't typically from diverse cultures or have aspects of diversity that stand out insanely. I do advocate for socioeconomic statuses as well as family structures to be acknowledged as aspects of diversity because they do affect our client and how we should address behaviors and complete our treatment with them. However, that's something I've noticed in a small town, as well as the barrier of time for behavior analysts, as it may be difficult to attend trainings as well as educate yourself if you are working, for example, as a new BCBA with a full caseload. Time has been something that I've noticed as a barrier.
Good. Thank you for sharing. Those are some great points. Next slide. So these are some questions that arose during the creation of our debate, and I'm sure maybe some of our listeners may be also wondering about these questions. The first question, validating our debate with research from other fields can be helpful because they are very similar in certain ways. For example, we do not receive gifts from our doctors, nor do we give gifts to our doctors. Also, social workers are working with clients in different contexts, but they still have to avoid multiple relationships to protect themselves and the client. And every field has to take into account cultural differences so they can provide attainable and effective services to those cultures that might be different from our own. Question number 2, dual relationships in small communities and rural areas can come in many forms and sometimes unavoidable. Given the likelihood of dual relationships occurring, behavior analysis would do well to anticipate the ways in which their professional lives may intersect with their personal and family lives. At an appropriate time, it would be in the best interest of the provider to discuss with the clients on how they might best handle these circumstances. Question 3, having multiple relationships can be harmful to the client. The BACB states that multiple relationships can impair the behavior analysis ability to perform services objectively and effectively. Going back to gift giving and social media, these both could lead to multiple relationships. If a behavior analysis receives a gift or friends someone online, This could lead the behavior analysis to react in an emotional way, or this could lead to the behavior analysis to create biases and give better services to someone who is handing out gifts or who they are friends with online. Or these multiple relationships can have the opposite effect. Treatment and services could be affected in a negative way, which would in turn could harm the client. Next slide.
Thank you so much for watching our debate. Thank you so much for watching our debate on humanistic service provision. We hope that we have sparked intrigue into your ethical journey through this topic, and our references will follow on the next 3 slides. Thank you so much for watching.